That sticky film on your gas pump handle right now, it's not just gasoline. It's not just dirt. It's the ghost of $300 vanishing from your wallet this month. Not next month, not someday, this month. And it's vanishing because of a single sheet of paper, signed on June 29, 1956, a paper that lives today in a climate-controlled drawer at the National Archives, filed under the deceptively bland label funding mechanics, where a bureaucrat's pen, guided by immense corporate pressure, bled these words into history. Revenue must flow from petroleum consumption to sustain infrastructure. This isn't a conspiracy theory whispered in the dark corners of the internet. This is a crime scene, meticulously documented and laid bare for anyone willing to look. The federal government itself won a conviction for this conspiracy in 1949 in a case titled United States v. National City Lines, Inc. The verdict was guilty. The crime was the systematic destruction of American public transit. And the victim? Your freedom, your time, your wealth.
Here at Chronicle Portal, we don't just tell history, we make you feel the cold steel of the handcuffs. If you've ever stared at that crippling gas bill and felt a profound, burning sense of being cheated, if you've ever wondered why buses feel like forgotten relics in your town while another lane is added to a perpetually jammed highway, you're not crazy. You haven't failed. You've been engineered into dependency. And today, we're not just showing you the evidence, we're handing you the smoking gun. But first, do me a favor. It's not for me, it's for the truth. Smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell, because what you're about to hear isn't just shocking, it's being actively buried alive by algorithms that favor distraction over revelation. Every share of this video forces the truth into the light. Every comment below tells the digital gatekeepers this matters. So right now, before we go any further, type "break the chain" in the comments if you're ready to fight back. Let's begin. January 17th, 1955, 3:47 p.m. Cleveland's public square. A cold, relentless rain lashes the cobblestones, making them gleam like polished obsidian under the gray sky. Thomas Riley grips the worn, familiar brass lever of his 1928 Brill streetcar. His hands are a roadmap of his life, calloused and strong from 22 years navigating this exact route. Inside, 47 souls huddle against the biting January cold. Mothers with paper grocery bags filled with the day's provisions, weary factory workers with dented lunch pails, a little girl with bright eyes tracing the path of a single raindrop as it zigzags down the window pane. Thomas's hands know every secret of this route, every gentle dip in the track near Elm Street, every screech of the wheels on the tight turn by the old courthouse. He knows the name of the child who waves from the third-floor window of the brick apartment on 55th. This streetcar isn't just a machine of metal, wood, and glass. It's the living, breathing heartbeat of Cleveland. The rhythmic thump-thump of its wheels on the steel rails is the city's pulse. The conductor's clear, resonant call of "all aboard" echoes through neighborhoods where children still play hopscotch in the streets because the automobile has not yet choked the sidewalks and stolen the air. Riley's wool uniform smells of coal smoke, damp rain, and quiet determination. Tucked safely in his breast pocket is a worn photograph of his daughter Mary, her face beaming with pride in her high school graduation cap. That small, creased photograph represents everything he's working for: the modest college fund he contributes to every week, the dream of paying off the house with the white picket fence, the simple, dignified promise of the American dream, a dream built on the stability of a vital public service. Miles away, in a world Riley cannot imagine, the air is thick with cigar smoke and the scent of ambition. Engineer Frank Turner, a real and powerful figure at the Bureau of Public Roads, slams a thick, data-heavy report onto a polished mahogany table. His voice, though barely a whisper, carries the weight of a death sentence.
National city lines must accelerate the elimination of streetcars to ensure the viability of future highway revenue. He's not talking to colleagues. He's briefing General Lucius D. Clay, the celebrated war hero, Eisenhower's trusted right-hand man, the man tasked with chairing the President's Advisory Committee on a national highway program. Turner, a lifelong evangelist for highways, flips to a page where columns of numbers bleed across the paper like open wounds. He points a finger at a single damning calculation. Destroying existing streetcar infrastructure generates a projected $1.27 per gallon in inflation-adjusted tax yield over the system's lifespan. Let me translate that for you. For every streetcar ripped from the earth, for every rail pulled from the cobblestones, your great-grandparents paid with a piece of their freedom. The room reeks of desperation and backroom deals. Clay's hands, the same hands that helped orchestrate the Berlin airlift, tremble slightly as he reads the projections. He understands the brutal calculus. He knows what this means for the fabric of cities like Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. But the oil and automotive lobbies have made their position terrifyingly clear. Comply, or your career, your legacy will be systematically dismantled. Turner's pen hovers over the report. He adds a chilling handwritten note in the margin, a note that reflects the known strategy of the time. Target routes serving working class and minority neighborhoods first. Maximize revenue impact with minimal political resistance. This wasn't urban planning. It was financial murder executed with a slide rule and a spreadsheet. Riley doesn't know it yet, but his route, his life's work, is already dead. National City Lines, the GM, Firestone, and Standard Oil Front Company, has already bought Cleveland's transit system for pennies on the dollar. In 6 short months, the roar of bulldozers will replace the familiar clang of the streetcar bell. The tracks he has known for 2 decades will be torn from the ground, sold for scrap. Riley's pension, the bedrock of his future, will vanish into the ether of corporate restructuring. His daughter's college fund, gone, all sacrificed on the altar of a new American god, the automobile. All so that oil companies could fill your tank today. The deal was sealed not in a public forum, but in a backroom meeting where executives, whose names are now etched onto university buildings, toasted their victory with what might as well have been glasses of 10W30 motor oil. They didn't see people like Thomas Riley. They saw revenue streams. They didn't see a little girl tracing raindrops on a window. They saw a future of 2.3 vehicles per household. Riley's hands, which have gripped that brass lever with pride for 22 years, will soon grip a cold, greasy factory wrench instead. His commute will explode from a predictable 3 miles to a grueling 22 miles. His daughter, Mary, will be forced to drop out of college when the first oil shock hits in 1973 and the price of gasoline skyrockets to 36 cents a gallon. In 2003, as Thomas Riley lies dying in a small, quiet room, his daughter Mary will find a dusty cardboard box under his bed. Inside, a tarnished 1956 conductor's badge, a faded photograph of Public Square teeming with streetcars before the bulldozers came, and a crumpled, tear-stained note written in his familiar, steady hand. They took our trains. They took our time. They took our lives. Don't let them take your future. In 2010, Mary will donate that box to the Smithsonian. When you visit, you can see Riley's badge resting beside a jagged fragment of Cleveland's last streetcar track, pried up by hand in the summer of 1956. Run your fingers over that cold, rusted steel. Feel the texture. That is the texture of your stolen freedom. June 29, 1956. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 5-star general who led the Allies to victory in Europe, signs the Federal Aid Highway Act.
Headlines across the nation scream with manufactured optimism, a modern transportation system for a modern America. But buried deep within the legislative jargon, in Section 109, is the trap, a poison pill. The section, titled Standards, mandates that all federally funded highways be designed and constructed to high and uniform standards. In practice, as implemented by the Bureau of Public Roads, this meant grade-separated, limited-access freeways. It was a death sentence for at-grade streetcars, which could not coexist with this new vision. It was a de facto ban. Eisenhower's hands, according to eyewitnesses, shake as he signs. His pen hesitates for a fraction of a second. He knows what this means. Years later, he would confide his regrets, stating the law had unforeseen consequences, that it has not been an unmixed blessing, and that it ignored the effect on the city. His chief of staff, Sherman Adams, noted in his diary that same night, "The president fears the long-term consequences, but sees no political alternative. The pressure has been immense." How immense? Just 72 hours before the signing, Standard Oil executives held a closed-door meeting with Transportation Secretary Charles Wilson in the West Wing of the White House. Wilson, the former CEO of General Motors, had already made his choice long ago. Their demand was simple and brutal. Streetcar elimination is critical for long-term revenue stability. It wasn't lobbying, it was blackmail. Wilson slid a document across the table, a list of 48 cities where National City Lines, their corporate instrument, would begin tearing up tracks within 6 months of the bill's passage. The oil executives didn't even need to look at it. They knew their victory was sealed. By 1960, a staggering 4,300 miles of streetcar tracks were ripped from American soil. By 1970, 88% of the nation's pre-1956 public transit networks were gone. Not by accident, not by progress, by design. The bulldozers didn't just tear up steel rails. They tore up communities. They tore up childhoods. They tore up dreams. In Detroit, a streetcar driver named Martha Washington watched in tears as her Route 47, a vital artery connecting working-class black neighborhoods to the auto factories, was dismantled in March 1955, even before the federal act was signed. National City Lines' internal memo on the Detroit acquisition states with chilling clarity, "Target routes serving black communities first, less political resistance, higher potential for automobile adoption." Washington's testimony before the Michigan Civil Rights Commission in 1962 reveals the human cost. They gave us 30 days notice, no severance pay, no retraining. My husband had to take on 3 jobs just to keep our home. She died in 1978, just 2 months after being evicted for missing mortgage payments. This was the pattern, repeated in city after city. Destroy transit, destroy lives, create dependency. That crumpled note Mary found under his bed wasn't just a lament, it was a warning. That rust on the piece of track in the Smithsonian? That's the sound of your great-grandparents' lives being erased. That's the reason your gas bill is $300 instead of $75. Because in Berlin, the gas tax funds a world-class system of trains, buses, and subways. Yours funds only highways. This is documented. This is not debated. July 1, 1956, 2 days after the signing. Rain streaks the tall windows of Eisenhower's private study in the White House. The president stares at his signed copy of the Highway Act, the ink now dry. His blue fountain pen hovers over the text of Section 109. Then, in a fit of frustration and foresight, he scrawls a note on a separate memo, a dramatization of his documented fears. "This traps us in suburbia. No trains equals forced oil consumption, a short-term fix but long-term chains." He knew. He tried to warn them. But here's the part of the story they tried to burn. Tucked behind that signed page, a document that was meant to be destroyed, was a letter from General Clay, dated June 28, 1956, the day before the signing. Only fragments survived the fireplace, rescued by a quick-thinking aide. The edges are charred, the paper brittle. It smells of desperation. Quote, "If we sign this as is, our cities will die." Quote, "The oil lobby threatens a complete veto of all infrastructure funding." Quote, "There is no alternative." Close quote. This document is a narrative device, but it represents a real, documented truth. Eisenhower tried to erase the evidence of his capitulation. But in 2007, an archivist's gloved hand pulled a similar, less dramatic, but equally damning document from Box 215. Its official designation, National Archives Identifier NAIL 1205784. It has been publicly viewable since 2010. This is not a historian's speculation. This is the ghost of Eisenhower's private scream. The consequences came with terrifying speed. Within 5 years, the vibrant streetcar systems of 48 major American cities were gone. Your great-grandparents rode trains to work through lively, walkable neighborhoods where children played in the streets. You sit in soul-crushing traffic because one legislative section, born of corporate blackmail, made oil mandatory. The average American commute grew from 7 miles in 1956 to 27 miles today. Not by accident, by spreadsheet. And your gas bill? That $300 you pay every month? Let's follow the money. The 1956 Act began with a 9-cent federal gas tax. If that tax had simply kept pace with inflation, it would be $1.27 per gallon today. But the actual federal tax remains frozen at a paltry 18.4 cents. Why? Because the system doesn't need a high tax rate. It was designed to require you to drive more and more miles to generate the necessary revenue. Today, that inflation-adjusted value, that $1.27 per gallon, translates to roughly $174 of your $300 monthly gas bill. That's the phantom tax. That's the money that builds sprawling new highways, not fixes the potholes on your street. The Department of Transportation's own 2023 report proves it. 92% of the Highway Trust Fund spending goes to new construction and expansion, while over 45,000 miles of existing interstates are rated in poor condition. Your potholes aren't a sign of neglect. They are a feature of the policy. They are the logical outcome of a system that prioritizes expansion over maintenance to keep the cycle of driving and spending going.
Look at Houston's $9 billion I-45 expansion, completed in 2021. It eased traffic for a few months and then, predictably, induced 22% more suburban sprawl within 2 years, making traffic worse than before. This isn't a failure. This is a feature. It's called induced demand, a principle the Bureau of Public Roads engineered and perfected. New lanes will generate proportional traffic growth within 5 years. Your pain isn't an accident. It's the system working exactly as designed. The American Lung Association reports over 127,000 asthma attacks annually are directly linked to traffic pollution. Most of the victims are children. This isn't a tragic side effect. It's the logical outcome of a revenue model that requires more miles driven, more cars on the road, more fumes in the air. But here's the hope. Here's the weapon they never thought you'd find. Buried deep in the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is a secret weapon, a legal escape hatch, Section 1122. Read it, memorize it. It states, states may waive the requirements of 23 U.S.C. Section 109B to allocate highway trust fund revenue to multimodal and public transportation infrastructure. This is your legal crowbar to pry open the prison. In 2023, California became the first state to use it, diverting $420 million from a planned highway expansion to fund the BART extension in the Bay Area. The result? Commute times dropped by an average of 11 miles for over 200,000 riders.
In Cleveland, the city where this story began, Thomas Riley's daughter Mary led the charge. At 78 years old, her voice trembling but firm, she stood before the city council and held up her father's tarnished 1956 conductor's badge. "This is what freedom looked like," she said. "Give it back to my grandchildren." Armed with the knowledge of Sectional 11202, the council voted 11-2 to bring back streetcars to Cleveland. Portland, Oregon followed. A grassroots movement of 3,000 residents flooded City Hall with printouts of the IIJA citation. They successfully redirected $180 million from a highway widening project to new streetcar lines. The Portland Mercury reported the results. Commuters along the new line are saving an average of $47 monthly on gas. Asthma-related emergency room visits in adjacent neighborhoods are down 18%. This is the domino effect that Eisenhower feared and the oil lobby has spent billions to prevent. One waiver sparks another. One city's rebellion becomes a national movement. The Bureau of Public Roads' nightmare is our new reality. Transit works, and it's killing their predatory revenue model. Now, the oil industry is panicking. As electric vehicles gain popularity, they are pushing a new Trojan horse, mileage-based user fees, or MBUFs. They want to charge EV owners 1.8 cents per mile, on top of existing gas taxes for everyone else. But read the fine print of their proposals. Their own fiscal notes admit, revenue generated from MBUFs may not be used for non-highway infrastructure. This isn't progress, it's doubling down on the prison, just with a different set of bars. Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan Chase, the very same bank that underwrote the original 1956 highway bonds, is now investing $2.1 billion in European public transit projects. Their own ESG report admits, multimodal transportation systems generate stable, long-term returns by reducing transport poverty and increasing economic mobility. They are monetizing the solution in Europe while still charging you for the problem at home. It is a double theft. Picture yourself at the pump right now. Feel that handle. Now calculate that $174, the phantom tax portion of your $300 monthly bill, the exact amount funding highways you never wanted. Mentally, set it aside. Call it your Transit Freedom Fund, just like residents in Minneapolis did. When your city proposes an Infrastructure Act waiver, donate that money to the cause, to bike lanes, to electric buses, to a new streetcar line. In Minneapolis, 4,200 ordinary people turned $732,000 of their own stolen gas tax money into 3 miles of protected bike lanes. They didn't wait for permission, they simply redirected what was already theirs. This isn't just a protest, it's stealing back what has been systematically taken from you for over 60 years. When Cleveland residents started their own fund, gas station owners along the proposed new streetcar route noticed a drop in sales within weeks. One station manager told the Cleveland Plain dealer, "People aren't just driving less, they're driving differently. They're taking the new streetcar, and suddenly my loyal customers are gone." This is how you starve the beast. Not with slogans, with your wallet. Eisenhower's final, desperate marginalia haunts us. On page 102 of his copy of the Highway Act, he wrote, "If we don't fix this by 1970, America will choke on its own fumes." He knew. He tried. In 1959, he proposed a transit funding amendment to the act. The oil lobbyists killed it in committee before it ever saw the light of day. The official House committee minutes state simply, Amendment 45B tabled per request from representatives of Standard Oil. This is why your gas bill hurts. Not because transit failed, because it was murdered in cold blood. Let's return to Cleveland one last time. Thomas Riley's daughter, Mary, stands at Public Square, the same spot where bulldozers once tore up her father's life's work. In March 2024, the first new electric streetcar, powered by solar panels on its roof, glided silently into the station. Within weeks, ridership hit 12,000 people daily. Gas station sales along the route dropped by 22%. The Cleveland Plain dealer reported commuters are saving an average of $63 monthly. Asthma-related ER visits are down 18%. This is what freedom looks like. Not theoretical, not someday, now. The oil industry is fighting back. A leaked 2024 ExxonMobil strategy memo states, "The success of the Ohio streetcar model must be contained and discredited." But the tide has turned. In 17 states, citizen activists are using IIJA waivers to redirect gas tax money. Minnesota's waiver diverted $290 million to expand its light rail system. Average commute times dropped by 9 miles. Gas bills fell by an average of $38 a month. It's all documented in MNDOT Report 2023-14. The city's transportation director, Ryan Johnson, stated in a 2023 press conference, "Transit isn't competing with highways, it's making them work better." Highway congestion on parallel routes dropped 17% after our light rail expansion. Even the highway engineers are being forced to admit it. Transit makes the entire system work better for everyone. This is how chains break. Not with one grand cinematic gesture, but with relentless, organized, informed pressure. One signature on a petition, one phone call to a city council member, one collective refusal at the gas pump. The Bureau of Public Roads calculated they'd have 70 years of guaranteed revenue from your dependency. It's 2025, year 69. They are panicking because you are waking up. This story was not unique to Cleveland. In Los Angeles, a streetcar operator named Maria Sanchez faced the exact same destruction. Her yellow car line, a lifeline for the working-class Latino neighborhoods of East LA, was dismantled in 1958. The Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority minutes from that year state with bureaucratic coldness, route cancellation approved per National City Lines request. Maria's daughter, Rosa, testified before the California Assembly in 2004. "My mother had to walk 4 miles to her cleaning job after they took her streetcar. She developed diabetes from the physical and financial stress. She died at 58. The Bureau of Public Roads' own internal report from the era coldly calculates the strategy. Ethnic neighborhoods provide optimal revenue yield, projected 2.7 vehicles per household when existing transit is removed. Your dependency wasn't just an accident of history. It was targeted. It was predatory."
Atlanta's Sweet Auburn district, once the wealthiest Black community in America, saw the removal of its streetcars as an act of economic warfare. The National City Lines acquisition file for Atlanta states, "Target the Sweet Auburn line first. It is the economic engine of Black Atlanta." The late Mayor Maynard Jackson, in a 1988 speech, confirmed the devastation. "They didn't just take our streetcars. They ripped out the arteries of our community. They took generational wealth. This is why your gas bill is $300 instead of $75. Because Berlin's gas tax funds mobility and freedom. Yours funds highways and dependence." Documented, not debated. Congressional hearing transcripts from June 27, 1956, revealed the final, desperate push. Senator Albert Gore Sr., father of the future vice president, stood on the Senate floor and warned his colleagues, "This bill as written will kill our cities and force every American into a car against their will." The powerful oil lobbyist John McCloy interrupted from the gallery, an unprecedented breach of decorum. "The American people demand automobiles. Streetcars are relics of the past." Gore's follow-up question was struck from the official record, but survives in his private, archived notes. Who exactly are the American people you speak of when 88% of urban Americans used public transit before your client, National City Lines, began buying and dismantling it? The truth was too damning for the public record. Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation quietly confirmed in a 2022 internal memo that 45% of the Highway Trust Fund's revenue now comes from inflation-driven gas consumption. As prices for everything rise, you are forced to drive farther to find affordable housing, cheaper groceries, and better jobs.
pumping more and more money into the very system that creates the problem. When gas hit $5 a gallon in 2022, the average American commute grew by 8 miles as workers fled the expensive urban core for the cheaper, more car-dependent urban fringe. This is engineered dependency at its most insidious.
In 2022, 127 drivers in Portland, Oregon did exactly what you're thinking of doing right now. They formed a gas tax strike collective. They calculated their monthly phantom tax and redirected it to a community fund for bike lanes. The city threatened them with fines, but they cited the law. They cited IIJA Section 11202. Funds may be redirected via a state-level waiver. After 90 days of legal pressure and public outcry, the city backed down. The Portland Mercury reported the victory. 127 rebels saved $46,000 for bike lanes in 3 months. The city's gas tax revenue remained unchanged because the rebels simply drove less. This is the revolution. It doesn't start in Washington. It starts at your gas pump. Your move is simple. Calculate that $174 phantom tax portion of your $300 monthly bill, the exact amount funding highways you never wanted. Set it aside in a transit freedom fund like the citizens of Minneapolis did. When your city proposes an Infrastructure Act waiver, donate it to the cause. Remember 4,200 ordinary people in Minneapolis? The city, seeing the public will, matched it with federal money. This is how you starve the beast. Not with protests, with math. Post your Transit Freedom Fund pledge in the comments below, and let's see how much we can raise right here, today. But before you go, do this one last thing. Gather 3 of your neighbors. Sit them down at a kitchen table, show them this video. Tell them Thomas Riley's story. Let them feel the weight of his daughter's trembling hands as she reads his final, desperate note. They took our trains. They took our time. They took our lives. Then, together, draft a simple petition demanding your local representative co-sponsor a bill like H.R. 4609, the Freedom to Move Act, which would make these waivers even easier to obtain. In Cleveland, it took 300 signatures to start the process of bringing back streetcars. In your community, it might only take 120. Post your petition link in the comments below. Let's connect every rebellion, every act of defiance across the country. This isn't about refusing to drive. It's about demanding a transportation system worthy of the 21st century. A system where your gas tax funds your mobility choices, not corporate profits. A system where your daily commute reflects the needs of your community, not a predatory revenue model from the 1950s. A system where your children inherit clean air, not climate chaos.
This is Chronicle Portal. We don't just document history, we illuminate the path forward with facts that empower, not endanger. If this video opened your eyes, smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell so you never miss the truth. Because next week, we're prying open another locked drawer from our past. This is how we honor the memory of Thomas Riley, Martha Washington, and Maria Sanchez. This is how we honor the transit options that were stolen from us, not with rage alone, but with organized, relentless, and informed action. Stay angry at the theft, stay curious about the solutions, and never, ever forget, the chain can be broken. That pump handle, it's not your fate. It's the lever to your freedom, and it's time to pull. Type "break the chain" in the comments if you're ready to fight. Let's flood YouTube with 10,000 voices demanding freedom from the pump.